Hey, welcome back! Today we're looking at Book 8 of the Iliad. The moment when Zeus finally begins to work his plans out a little more, I guess. But before we see how this works out, let's look at the characters. Zeus is going to play an important role in this section. He's finally going to be exerting his influence on the battlefield. And he does so in a very intense lay down the law kind of way. He's rather brutish and cruel to some of the other gods, who maybe have it coming, but at the same time, Zeus is powerful and kind of a jerk. We also see Hera and Athena in basically the same light we've been seeing them throughout this. They challenge Zeus because they want things to go their way, and they can be very bitter and angry about it. But they don't get much opportunity to participate this time, thanks to Zeus laying down the law. On the battlefield itself, we see Hector and his powerful prowess on the battlefield. And he feels pretty good in this book because he gets a lot of support from the gods. And although he still exhibits that nobleness that we expect of Hector, perhaps he does exhibit a little bit of pride as well. On the Greek side, we get Nestor, who's still depicted as the old man who's very wise, gives good advice. But he's going to definitely be on the battlefield in this book. And although he doesn't have the same amount of prowess he once did when he was a young man, his clear-headedness and intelligence and experienced wisdom give him an advantage on the battlefield. Diomedes we see still struggling against fate, and there's an excellent moment of that in this book. We'll also get to meet a character who we haven't seen very much yet, whose name is Teucer. Teucer is the half-brother of Great Ajax, and the two of them are going to work together to do some pretty significant damage on the battlefield. Teucer is an archer and very plucky. He's very enthusiastic and throws himself into his work. Okay, let's see how the action plays out in this section. The book opens with Zeus laying down the law on the other gods. Remember all the way back in Book 1, Zeus made a promise to Thetis, which is going to be recalled in this book, that he would let the Trojans win for a while to bring glory to Achilles, since Achilles is sitting out and he wants his side to lose, so they come crying to him. So far, that really hasn't happened. In fact, it's kind of been the opposite. Diomedes has taken the place of Achilles on the battlefield, decimating the Trojan armies and making them cower in fear and run into their city and pray, and he's threatening them more than Achilles ever did. In the one-on-one fight, we saw Ajax, who was perfectly willing to stand up to Hector, and in fact, do a lot of damage in the one-on-one fight. So we really haven't missed Achilles. That promise has so far gone unfulfilled. But now Zeus is going to actually try to get things in process. And so, in order to do so, he has to really come down hard on those gods who have been helping the Greeks. Hear me, all you gods and all goddesses too, as I proclaim what my heart inside me urges. Let no lovely goddess, and no god either, try to fight against my strict decree. All submit to it now, so all the more quickly I can bring this violent business to an end. If any god I catch breaking ranks with us, eager to go and help the Trojans or Achaeans, back he comes to Olympus, whipped by the lightning, eternally disgraced. Or I will snatch him and hurl him down to the murk of Tartarus, half the world away, the deepest gulf that yawns beneath the ground where the iron gates and brazen threshold loom, as far below the house of death as the sky rides over earth. Then he will know how far my power tops all other gods. And he goes on to say, come on, if all of you face me, all of you at once, I'll still whip every one of you. Stop messing around. I have a plan. Leave the battle to me. They're all a little bit shocked, and Athena quietly raises her hand and says, okay, we know we can't challenge you, but do you mind if we slip some battle tactics to some of the men? We just don't want our Greeks to lose. And Zeus kind of just winks and then flies up to Mount Ida to sit in glory on the top of the peak and overlook the battle. And so the fighting begins, and the two sides rush together, and they begin to fight and kill each other. And Zeus watches until noon, when out he pulls his golden scales. And these are the scales with which he weighs the souls of men. And on one side are the Greeks, and on the other side are the Trojans. And this time, the Greeks go down and the Trojans go up, meaning that the Greeks are ready to die and the Trojans to live. And at that point, suddenly, Zeus starts dashing lightning down in the midst of the battle at the Greeks, which absolutely decimates their charge. In battle against men, you win some, you lose some, but when the gods start throwing lightning bolts at you, there's nothing you can do. And so none of the heroes are able to stand their ground. They all turn and bolt. All the big names start sprinting off the field. One of the only ones who doesn't run away is Nestor, and it's not because he doesn't want to, but it's because Paris has just come and shot his horse. And so one of his horses on his chariot falls down, tangling all the others. And so Nestor's out there with his sword trying to hack the dead horse out from all the others so that he can get away. Meanwhile, Hector starts barreling across the field right for Nestor. The only one who sees Nestor's impending doom is Diomedes. And Diomedes shouts for other heroes, particularly for Odysseus, but Odysseus doesn't hear him. So Diomedes drives his own car up there next to Nestor, and he yells for Nestor to hop in his car. And the two of them are going to turn and charge against Hector. Now Diomedes still has the super awesome car that he stole from Aeneas back in Book 5. And so Diomedes sends his own driver, Sthenelus, remember him, into Nestor's car to take care of that car while he turns and faces Hector. And the two of them charge Hector, and they throw a spear, missing Hector, but skewering Hector's driver off of his car. Hector is so upset, but he just grabs the reins, turns the car, and goes back to get another driver. So now, with Diomedes and Nestor tag teaming up, ready to fight against the Trojans, it looks like the Greeks can turn things around. But Zeus is not having any of that. He has a plan, and he's gonna make it happen. So he flings a thunderbolt right in front of Diomedes' car, blasting the earth open in front of Diomedes. And Nestor gets the point very, very quickly. He turns to Diomedes and says, "Quick, Tydides, swing these stallions round and fly! Can't you see? Victory comes from Zeus, but not for you. He hands the glory to Hector, today at least. Tomorrow it's ours, if he wants to give us glory. There's not a man alive who can fight the will of Zeus. Even a man of iron, Zeus is so much stronger." And so we remember Diomedes, the god fighter, back from Book 5. Remember how he fought off Aphrodite, which wasn't too hard. And then he fought even Apollo, he even fought Ares. And Apollo's big cry was, "This man is insane, he'd even fight Zeus." Is Diomedes going to challenge Zeus? Well, he's definitely tempted. Nestor is clear-headed, he's like, "You can't fight Zeus, we're off, we're out." But Diomedes, lord of the war cry, answered, "Right, old soldier, all you say is true, but here's the grief that cuts me to the quick. One day this Hector will vaunt among his Trojans, 'Diomedes ran for his ships, I drove him back,' so he'll boast, I know. Let the great earth gape and take me down that day." Diomedes can't stand to be called a coward. He thinks, if Hector's gonna think that he beat me back, and Nestor's like, "Nonsense, steady Tydeus' son, such loose talk. Let Hector call you a coward, scorn your courage. The Trojan and Dardan troops will never believe him, nor will the wives of the lusty Trojan shieldsmen. Never. You flung their lords in the dust, laid them low in their prime. After all the damage you've already done, Diomedes, nobody's challenging your courage. Even if Hector mocks you, nobody's gonna listen to him or believe him." And since Nestor's the one driving, he whips the reins around and starts getting them out of there. As they ride off, Hector does begin to fling taunts at Diomedes. "Diomedes, once the Danaan riders prized you first of men with pride of place, choice meats and brimming cups. Now they will disgrace you, a woman after all. Away with you, girl, glittering little puppet. I'll never yield. You'll never mount our towers, never drag our women back to your ships of war. I'll pack you off to the god of darkness first." Ooh, that just gets under Diomedes' skin. So unfair. Diomedes always fights against fate, and here it is, fate flinging him a loss. And there's nothing he can do about it. Diomedes was torn two ways. He'd half a mind to turn the team and take him face to face. 3 times Tydides was tempted, heart and soul. 3 times from the crags of Ida, Zeus let loose his thunder. The master strategist, handing down a sign to the Trojans. victory thunder turning the idle tide of war their way. So Diomedes keeps wanting to turn around and fight Hector, but every time he almost does, Zeus thunders at him again. There's really nothing he can do, but it's so infuriating. And Hector sees that Zeus is definitely on their side. With Zeus on their side, it's time to take out these Greeks. He's ready to charge their fortifications, leap over their ditch, and just absolutely wipe them out. Let's burn their ships and kill them all. There's even this nice moment when he cheers on his horses. And there's this brief moment when he acknowledges how much Andromache loves these horses and how much care she's put into them. Sometimes even feeding them before she feeds him. And we see his affection for her in this moment as he's speaking to his horses. It's kind of sweet. And so he cheers his horses on, hoping to overtake Diomedes and Nestor and kill them before they get back. At this point, Hera can't take it anymore. She's so angry that her guys are losing that she nudges Poseidon and says, "Quick, Poseidon, go fight for the Greeks! Fight against these awful Trojans!" But Poseidon's no idiot. He's not going to fight against Zeus. He knows what'll happen if he tries to take on Zeus. So Hera just nudges Agamemnon and tries to get him to stir up his men and get them into fighting spirit. And so Agamemnon shames his men, tells them they're all a bunch of wusses, and says, "We gotta fight, don't just stand there." And then he prays to Zeus, "Zeus, don't let us just get slaughtered out here." And Zeus feels a little pity, and so he sends them this sign. This eagle flies over, holding onto a fawn. And the eagle inspires them to courage. They see the eagle as a symbol of victory. And so the Greek, inspired by the eagle sign, jump out and attack again. Diomedes rushes out, leading the charge with several other heroes behind him. And now we get the tag team of Ajax and his half-brother Teucer. Ajax, who's huge and beefy and has an enormous shield, stands there and protects Teucer while Teucer pulls arrows and takes shots. And Teucer cannot miss. He goes 8 for 8, slaughtering Trojan heroes. Agamemnon is so impressed that he begins to praise Teucer and offer him all kinds of rewards, but Teucer's not really inspired by rewards. He's giving it his all already. And he's so determined to get the glory of taking out Hector. He takes 2 more shots directly at Hector, missing both times, in part thanks to Apollo nudging the arrows. But he still has 2 kills. He kills Hector's half-brother Gorgythion, and he kills Hector's second driver. Hector is furious and hands his reins off to a third driver, jumping down and rushing forward to try to take out Teucer. Hector grabs a rock and chucks it at him, just as he's reloading, and he snaps his bowstring and knocks his arm out of commission. But big Ajax is there to protect his little brother, and he guards him while the rest of the Greeks pull Teucer off the battlefield. And Hector is back on the warpath, jumps back on his chariot, and drives the Greeks back behind their fortifications. And again, Hera is enraged, and her and Athena can't take it anymore. And Athena curses the fact that she gave all this energy to help Zeus in the past, like the time she saved Hercules and stuff. And so Hera and Athena jump on Hera's chariot, and they decide to rush out and intervene. They can't hold back anymore. But as soon as Zeus sees them riding out, he sends Iris to warn them, saying, "Stand down now, or I will blast you out of the sky with my lightning." Iris swoops down in front of them and gives the message, at which point they realize there's no way they can stand against Zeus, and so they back up and return to their seats. Zeus then flies back to Mount Olympus and mocks and insults them, to their great frustration. They mutter behind his back a little bit, but there's really nothing they can do. Hera repeats the same statement that Athena said before, asking if they can just give battle strategy to their favorite heroes. But Zeus makes a proclamation. This is how it's going to go. I know you hate Hector, but he's going to keep on winning until the moment that I have planned, when Achilles will rise again after the death of Patroclus and return to the field. However, at this point, night is falling and the fighting must end because it's getting too dark to fight anymore. The Greeks are greatly relieved at this, while the Trojans are disappointed. And so Book 8 ends with Hector having this big long speech to his men. He decides that because they are on a winning streak now, because they've done so much damage today, they need to camp outside the walls of Troy to keep watch on the Greeks so none of the Greeks try to slink away in the night. They'll light all the fires and keep everything nice and bright and be ready for more battle in the morning. And Hector really hopes to come face to face with Diomedes tomorrow and to take him down finally. Hector at this moment is demonstrating a bit of pride. He's very confident in their victory now. However, we've seen that the gods can be incredibly inconsistent. And so they light all the fires and set up camp. The night begins and they wait for dawn to come. But dawn's not going to come for a while because we have a lot more that's going to happen tonight. We'll see what happens when we get into Book 9. Before we finish, let's look at some of the key features of this section. First of all, there are some significant symbols in this book. The golden scales that Zeus holds up demonstrate how fate works. Certain people are fated to die at certain times, and we've seen that idea over and over again throughout the book. The gods weigh the value of their souls. A lot of the times the gods will just sort of fickly choose to kill people. But there's also the sense from time to time that it is the time for someone to die. And the golden scales represent that. There's also the symbol of the eagle, which stands as an omen or a sign to the people of victory. This isn't the only time we're going to see an eagle in the book, so keep your eyes out for that. There's also that element of repetition, which I mentioned as we were going through. Both Athena and Hera, at the different ends of the book, say the exact same lines. This helps the poet who is reciting the poem to keep it in his memory. And as we mentioned, there are the big themes of struggling against fate, struggling against doom. And Diomedes' frustrations demonstrate that most clearly. Thanks for watching. We will continue next time as we see what happens through the night. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.